Hello folks, my name is Kristen Sanjamaya. I'm a music writer here. This is Muzarticle the Loftus Studio, and I'm here with Christie O'Neil, and she is a wonderful book writer who is writing books to help people, to perhaps promote hope, happiness for other people, to give people insights on other people's lives and stories, that kind of like goes similarly with their lives, as far as that goes. First of all, what I want to do is I want to say that we met in karaoke. I'm a singer, and we met at a place called The Parlor. The Parlor is a bar up here in the North Main Street area. If you happen to come into town and you want to visit, at the end of the show, we're going to give some information. We are putting together something called the Karaoke Songbird here in the Providence area. It will be the first one, but it's going to let people know about places that you can go sing in as well as that. And you might even meet up with Christie as well if you happen to go to any of the schedules and she's there, Christie, and she'd be more than willing to talk to anybody. There is something that I am trying to stress to anybody who is watching this show. This is very important. Is don't go out, grab your money, run out, and just start spending your money. That's number one. I know you'd say the same thing. Don't just start spending your money, because you yourself have already gotten your phone call already where just one little thing can start adding up to dollar bills. And the sad thing about that is that it'll bankrupt your first book, it'll bankrupt your first dream, whatever it is, so you don't want to do that. We want you to know that from me and her, we want people to be successful. I do. I stress to be successful. So the first thing that we want to talk about is that she's working on 3 books. This will be her 3rd book. She just wrote a book in November, and then she wrote a book before that, which is Dear Tommy, which is about her brother and some of their adventures, and as well as that, there's some other things that she can share with you, the reasons why. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to go back and we want to ask why, and when did this, come into your life that you just needed just to know that you were going to be a book writer. You wanted to write stories, write books, and maybe not only in this line, but were there other, types of books as well as you wanted to write?
Mm-hmm. Well, I started expressing myself through journal entries and diaries back when I was about 10 years old. And that was just a coping mechanism for me as a kid, just to deal with my feelings. And that's how I got into writing. And I always felt like I had something to share with the world, something I wanted to write about, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I had anything original to say, or if I had anything that was worthy enough. And then it just so happened that the cause of my first book was my brother's death, unfortunately. He died on May 24th, 1994, in a chemical engineering accident. And the day after that happened, I wrote a eulogy for him in the form of a poem. And then I just started writing my journal entries to him to let him know what was going on in my life, to let him know how much I missed him. Maybe at some point I'll read an excerpt from the book. And I just was writing to him. And then actually after September 11th, 2001, a lot of people lost somebody immediately. Whatever the numbers were, 5,000 or so people died that day. And I just knew at that point that I wanted to help people, because a lot of people lost somebody suddenly, which is something that I had gone through. And that was the moment in time when I realized, okay, now I have something that I can write about, that I can use to help people. And helping people has always been a big part of my life. It's always given me satisfaction. So I went so this book was 14 years in the making, from 1994 up until 2008 when I did publish it. I took a long time researching publishers. I got the support of my family and friends. I actually have contributions from some of his friends, as well as an interview with my sister, his girlfriend, entries from my parents. A lot of different people put a lot of work, and it's a labor of love, really. I released him into the world when I wrote this book. So it sold about just over 500 copies, and I've heard from people who said it's helped them with their own grief, which has been very good to hear. If I could help just one person, then I did my job as far as getting this book out there. It also helped me in my own grief. It was my own therapy. as far as getting people to understand what you go through when you lose somebody. And my second book, if I could move into that a little bit, is a poetry and essays book. It's a little bit different. It's not focused so much on grief. It's more just poetry that I've written throughout my life. It's a shorter book. It's called Collecting Seashells by the Seashore. So I'm in the process of publishing that now. The contract has gone through. It's paid for. It's about ready to go. And then the third book I worked on in November, and this book was inspired by you, Krishna, actually, when you shared your story with me. It's another grief book, but it's not so much about my grief. It's more about other people. It's about young widows and widowers.
And that's really good too. I mean, I have to say that any way you can reach out to anybody, and that's what it is. I'm not trying to say that you try to write a story in my book. You don't try to write a story to offend or hurt anybody. You try to write a story to inspire other people.
That's right.
And then in the end of every story, which I like, is to have a happy ending, because someone like you will be the type of person to say that if I can help you, I'll be the first to try to help you. And that's good. So it's not like you're just being left hanging. You're not going to be left with a rope around your head. You read a story, you feel sad, you feel tragic. There'll be a way to get a contact to her to be able to help you, And one of the things, another thing I'm going to stress in this part is that if you do have troubles is one thing, and you have problems and you want to get that help, you know what I'm saying? And it's something we can help you with. We ask you that you start with your local areas first, and that's number one. Start with your local help first if it's that bad. But otherwise, if you don't have problems, don't call up and try to lie or bring any stories to us, because I don't want that either. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to help legit people get back on the road. My music is how I help people get on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Her music, singing, we go to shows all the time, which one of these days we're going to do another one of these, and it's going to be actually about her music that she's writing, and we're going to play some of your music. And then again, we may even do some live actual singing and performances here. And we may even have more guests for all that. I don't know right now. We're going to probably plan the next show. As of today, I'm doing the interview with her, but next time she's going to be actually it's going to be Christie and Chris. And we're going to do this show together. And we're going to start working on a few things we've had in mind, projects, as well as that. To do this, I'm going to work on a project with her to help people called DJ for a Smile. That will help children, people, and stuff like that, and it might even support, your grief program to better it and bigger it as well,
Mm-hmm.
But back to the book, the book itself.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a very tragic story, and I'm not here to talk, or we're not going to go into it to try to, to get any feelings out of you. But the story being about your brother and this tragic engineering thing is that all I want to ask is that one question
Mm-hmm.
is that how long did it take for you to actually literally find out about this, like right away? Was it quick?
When it happened?
When it happened, I mean.
It was a Tuesday night. I was reading a book. This is an interesting little twist to it all. I was reading a book called Embraced by the Light, and it was about near-death experience. I was in the middle of that book. And what I didn't know at the time, around 8 o'clock or so, my mother had been home alone, and she received a phone call. And it actually, the book talks about that a little bit. But it wasn't until about 11:30 that our phone rang at home, and I was living with my boyfriend at the time. He answered the phone, and it was my mom, and he gave the phone to me, and something was wrong. He knew right away. I mean, for the phone, when the phone rings that late at night, it's not going to be good news. And my mother had a very robotic sound to her voice. It didn't sound like her, and she said, "Christie, there's been an accident where Tommy works." And in the very short time between when she said that and then she told me that he was dead, this whole thing went through my mind. I thought that she said that a vat exploded. And so I thought, okay, well, he's been very badly injured. We're going to have to go through a lot of things together as a family. I just this whole scenario went through my head, and then she said to me those 3 words that reverberated in my head for a long time, which was, "Christie, Tommy's dead." And at that point I just screamed, and I fell to the floor with the phone, and I collapsed. And from there on out, I don't remember anything else that my mother said to me. I think my boyfriend then got on the phone and he spoke to her, and she had actually made plans for some family to come down and to pick me up and bring me home. And my mind went into a whole other state where I packed a bag for a week, and I packed some black clothes because I knew there was going to be a funeral, and just had to prepare myself to be away from home for a while. And so the ride home that night was a very dark night. It was the darkest night of my life. It was the worst night of my life.
I mean, that's your brother. I mean,
exactly.
You do have a sister. Don't get me wrong.
I do have a sister.
And having a sister, I've got to say that having a sister is great because that gives you another sibling in your family to
That's right.
to look to help. You know what I'm saying? To support you back as well as support them too. Because I mean, it's not only hard on you. She's younger, right?
That's right.
So it's very hard on her as well. And one of the things that I say to the viewers themselves is that they need to really seriously, when anything like this happens in your life, to help anybody. If you are strong and you are that powerful, you know what I'm saying, and you got that inside of you, help. And I'm sure that's what you've done, Christie. I'm sure that you helped your little sister out of a huge amount.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean.
And your mother and all them too, because I mean.
We all went into different modes. I got home that night and I ran into the house, and my parents were there, my sister was there, and we just embraced in a very tight circle, and we just held each other, and we got a hole in our hearts that night. I mean, somebody was missing from our lives.
I know that feeling.
That's right.
I know that feeling of the hole in the heart.
Mm-hmm. And that's a hole that never mends completely. I mean, time helps and time heals. And I always say this too, when people read my book and I talk to people about grief, I say your grief is your own, and I don't suppose or I don't assume to know what it's like, because everybody goes through their own grief at their own level, through their own time.
Some even do it without people knowing it, and that's the sad, that's the dangerous part of it. Some of them are doing it so silent that you just don't know, and it's rough. It's very rough.
It is. It's a tough thing. But I think the more that people are able to talk about it, the more that there is less stigma involved with grief, then it helps people. It helps people to be able to talk about it, to be able to expose. And I see this, actually I see this on things like Facebook, where I know of mothers who've lost children who can reach out and talk about it and say, I lost my child on this day, and this is the day that I spend grieving or whatever. And I found, I am amazed by the fact, when I was working on this book, most recently the Rising from the Ashes book, with you and speaking to other people who've lost somebody, how many people I now know who've lost someone to murder. And when I tell people that, they're like, how do you know all these people? I said, I don't know, it happens. I meet these people and connections are made, and
people are willing to talk about it. I am going to be honest with you. People are, because sometimes people just like me, I carried things on my shoulder for a very long time. I won't really get into it, but there are things that I wanted to say to people that I love you no matter what, and I'm very sorry in my case. And it's just not easy. It's a very tragic thing to know you love anybody and all of a sudden just one day, they're gone. You know what I'm saying? And you can't explain nothing to yourself. You can't explain nothing to the families. You can't explain nothing to the friends. You sometimes you become a target, and and it's sad and it's very tragic. So I tell people that it's tough. There's nothing you can do. I don't even know really how to tell people how to to have a bailout plan, because like I say, there is no real bailout plan. You're losing people, you know what I'm saying? And people are not going to be happy on either side, no matter what side it is.
Right.
So like on your situation, losing your brother, that's a sibling. That's a moment in your life. You lost somebody you played with, you grew up with, you went to school with, gave you some coaching, gave you some reassurances in your life that you really needed, some hope,
He taught me how to swear. He taught me how to listen to music. He taught me a lot of things. He's a very funny person. He's very
I'm not
funny.
saying that swearing is good, but sometimes.
No, I'm not saying that. But as a younger
but saying that swearing is good when when you got to fight back. And I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
Some people deserve what they really do get in life. I'm sorry, people do. They do deserve it. There are people out there that will literally belittle you in any way they possibly can. Say bad things about you, destroy you, and yet have the most dirtiest sack or the dirtiest backyard they ever had in their whole life. So it happens. It's very tragic, in that sense. But I say that it used to be a good defense for me if you had to retaliate.
Right. But I mean, here was somebody who, as you say, I grew up with him. I was looking forward to having an adult relationship with him. He was at the peak of. He was about to graduate from college. He was 6 months shy. And he did receive his degree posthumously from Worcester Polytech Institute. They gave it to him a year after he died, and we had a ceremony, and I recited a poem there at the ceremony, and we had all of his friends, and there's a memorial garden planted and a boulder with a plaque on it with his name. So, and his spirit lives on, and as I say, with this book I did release him into the world, and a lot of people have gotten to know him firsthand or gotten to know him better, and it's something.
What were some of the corners that you went on in order to let the world know? Like, I know internet, like for instance, the internet was one of those, you stopped and you said, hey, I'm gonna cast this all over, what I'm saying, the internet. But like how the guy goes out with the newspaper and he stands on the corner and he throws the newspaper out to everybody so they get to know the news, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That this, but what was your way of going about letting everybody know, like, the news?
Well, when I did publish the book originally, I did a lot of book signings. I did my first, I did a book tour, if you will. I went to my church where I grew up, and I did a book signing there, and I did book signings at libraries. I did them at some bookstores. I went around, I literally pounded the pavement. I had a box of books in the back of my car, and I would go out to bars and I would say, hey, look at this book, this is me on the cover, do you want to buy my book? I did a lot of one-to-one sales, a lot of things like that. I did through my publishing company called Trafford. I did some marketing stuff through them, which I was actually dissatisfied with. I will say that if you write a book and you want to self-publish, it's a great idea. But if you're marketing it, spending your money on marketing can be a big waste of money. I learned that the hard way.
That I agree. And I mean, I am all into what's called virtual. Everything since I saw the first virtual videos and stuff like that, I learned how people are using all kinds of different technology to advertise these days. Advertisements beginning to be almost just you standing here and having something and advertising it. It's getting to the point people are not spending the money anymore. The technology is getting cheap. As they were saying to me the other day, they were saying technology is getting more, commercials are getting more cheesier and cheesier. But let me tell you something. Even though they are funny. Some of them are funny as ever.
And the funny ones stick with you.
That's right. And the way that it works is that I like YouTube. YouTube is a really great place to express yourself. You know what I'm saying? I say express yourself in a good way, not in some bad way or hurting people like some of those things I say on there. But you get a chance not only to make money, but if you're good at what you do, you can make money. And that's a good way for you to take, like she's taking her books, and we're doing this here, and then we're going to put this also on YouTube, and let you see it, and learn a little bit. And as we get more into this, I really want you to express people, though, to understand that when you were talking about the marketing and stuff, that is very important to understand. At any point in time, if you don't know about marketing, you need to go to the library, like she said, where she did the signings, and not just go there to get signed on your book, but to research what you're doing, because there's not only suits that can go down for you lying or not doing the right thing, just taking the truth and just saying what you want, because that ain't always the way it is.
Right.
So you really got to be careful what you do, and you got to do research on your publishing, because every book I've ever read myself on music publishing and book publishing tells you that if you are your own publisher and you want to go out there, you pay companies to put your stuff together, it's one thing. She's an editor, so she can do that. She can edit her own material down to the point where it's zero problems and then have it done, and that's one cost. But for anybody just to go out there that doesn't know what they're doing and not researching, is it always says in all the books, no matter what you do, it's never just to pay somebody that's got a smile of, hey, my name is Harry, I'm a publishing company, I'm going to make you money. And really what's going to happen is you're going to get your pocket drained, and you're going to see him tell you, well, we need your book for about 5 years, and then you're not going to ever really know whatever happened to it. I'm sorry to say it.
Right. That's one thing that I found useful in terms of being self-published, is that I have my own rights, I own them, it's me. I went with Trafford. They were a Canadian company originally, and then over the course of time they were bought up by another company called Author Solutions. So Author Solutions is this umbrella company, and they actually own a lot of other self-publishing companies. I did decide for my second book, which is called Collecting Seashells by the Seashore, to go with a different company called Ex Libris. Now they happen to be a sister company to Trafford. So I was able to negotiate a deal with them. I said, well, I already have published with you as a self-published author through Trafford, and I know you guys are related because Author Solutions owns all of you. So I did get a good deal in terms of publishing my second book. And that being said, I'm still waiting to get the final galleys on the second book, and I have some up and down phone calls and things I have to make. And
but that's where staying update. Right. That's where your research has to. This is the thing you got to do in your research. You got to stay update. And one of those things that I learned from her the other day was when she looked at me, is she said it had to do with PDF files. As PDF files do change, which it seems to me they're changing quite frequently, the software that you're buying, if it's not updating, you need to find out where to get that software and find out what PDF files they are using. If that be the case, that would help you out a lot, because otherwise you're going to run into the same thing. And I think you should express to them exactly what you ran into, but without slandering any companies or anything like that.
Right, right. Well, essentially what happened is I sent them a PDF file as my final book. They said, okay, if you have any corrections you need to have made, send us the corrections. I did that. I sent them the corrections. Then they sent it back a few weeks later. Granted, it's the holidays. They said, well, we can't make these corrections because you sent us a PDF file. So I said, okay, I'll make the corrections on this end. I did that. I sent it back to them, and they said, oh, no, you're going to have to pay X amount of money for us to make these corrections. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense because you didn't make the corrections. I did on this end. Yeah. So I'm still up in the air about what's going to go on with that. I'll get it straightened out. I'll get it worked out.
That's one of those barriers right there.
It is, but I've learned with experience, when you have to stand up for yourself, you have to say, look, this is the work I've done. It's not work that you're doing, so I'm not going to pay you to do work that I've done. That doesn't make any sense. And you learn. You live and learn, and
I wrote in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'll tell you one of my ways that as a writer, the way I was working, is I don't believe you have to be the most perfect writer. You just got to have what you're going to do, and then you got to have a little bit of a circle, and then you kind of start with yourself in the middle of the circle, and then you just kind of clockwise, you just kind of go around and you decide who's next on the list and where it starts. And the first thing is, as a writer, you know that you can write the lyrics, but you can't write the music, so you find a pianist and he writes you the sheet music, and then he puts it all together for you, and then you go, the next step is you want to produce a piece of work, then you find a studio. Like me, I found a studio in Nashville, Tennessee called Top Track Studios, and I did three pieces of work down there. There again, a good studio, you won't cost you a lot, the same as a book company like your company that you worked with. Didn't cost a lot.
Right.
It could cost a lot if you got to go through what you're talking about with this PDF stuff. See, that's kind of that's something I consider hidden, because who would ever know that that's going to be, when you send something back to them, that's going to be it, because them could be those little catches they're trying to catch you on. The hook, throw the hook right in there on you.
Right.
But I did it that way. I put my circle, and then I decided I was in the middle. Now I needed to find some way to contact these people and get them all in my circle and have all these different little outlets. So that's exactly what you did. You found this publishing company, like you said, as an umbrella with other companies, which is good. It's the same as the circle, same thing. It's just that it's kind of a way of reaching out and going away, and then catching everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to.
Right.
And so this company that you're with now, actually, you didn't stop business with them. Would you recommend it to other people as well?
I want to hold off on that. I want to wait and see what happens when I get my next book. I want to go through the full process. I have somebody, a friend, who she published through Ex Libris, and she highly recommended them. She's had a very good experience with them. So, based on what she has said, I kind of went with them, knowing that she had had a good experience. I am having a pretty good experience, but I want to hold off until I get a full.
But because she had a good experience, don't mean that she wasn't afraid of spending that extra money. She didn't know
Well,
she didn't
that's
have
true.
to.
That's true.
That's one
She's
thing
in a
you don't
totally
know.
different
That's right.
situation.
Somebody can have the money and spend it and not worry about a difference. So
That's
16
true.
words, am I getting a book done and getting it right?
Right.
You know, to them it might be right, but to other people that got smaller pockets, well, it's not right, because there are people that want to reach in those little small pockets. In a time like this, I would say that you need to really research what you're really doing.
Right.
You know,
And I will say this too, you had mentioned earlier that, you know, because I'm an editor, I'm able to do a lot of work on my own book. That is true. But with Dear Tommy, I had 4 other editors. I wrote the book, and then I had 4 people, now friends of mine, and they say sometimes you shouldn't always have friends edit your work.
yeah, but critically, did they tell you as critics?
Yes, they did. They were able to go through and find things. And I used at the time, my husband was one of my editors, as well as a friend who, she had lost her brother. So she was somebody who was close to the contact, the information. She understood the content, so she was able to do some editing. I think my mother was one of the editors, and one other person, I don't remember who. But in any case, having those extra people to help me edit was a really useful thing. It's always good to have at least one other pair of eyes look at your stuff.
Yeah, and it's a
For
friend,
sure.
so you're not going to get hit as hard. I really can say this. And one of the other things about being part of, she's not only part of just the book writing and stuff, as we were talking earlier about that as well, as she's into music. She has written music, and I've heard her music, and she writes very beautiful music. She had a piano, the same way I did. She had someone that played a piano, do her work for her to help her put the other part together. Then she went and she did a recording of it, and she did it on the reasonable side, which is good. You know what I'm saying? Not to the red tape people. Red tape people, they don't care. They don't really, give a S about anything, anyways.
Right.
But she's also part of the Rhode Island film thing that's going on. I want to ask a little bit about that, because that fits you right into the place. I mean, as an editor, there's like any editor that edits film or edits anything else or does production, all that stuff just goes right, together there. But you were telling me about the Rhode Island.
It's called the Rhode Island Film Collaborative. And it's actually because of my book that I got into it. I was going around selling my book, and I met somebody who was a waiter and also an actor, and he's like, oh, you should come down to the Rhode Island Film Collaborative meeting sometime. And so I did, and I got to know these people, and I got involved with their fundraising, which is the Black and White Gala that they do every year in December.
I actually went with you.
That's right, you went with me to the meeting in December.
Yeah.
That's right. The Film Collaborative is made up of filmmakers, producers, actors, musicians, anybody who's involved in any aspect of film. You can be a behind-the-scenes person, you can be a camera person, you can be a production assistant, you can be an editor, any aspect of film that is involved. I've actually acted in a couple of independent films since becoming in the Rhode Island.
What are the names of these films?
The first film was called Scarlet Fever. I played Scarlet, the vampire. I was the main one. As I put it, I was the epileptic vampire because looked like I was having a stroke we filmed outside at Narragansett Beach back at the time. It was kind of a ridiculous little film, but I did it. And then the other film, which is yet to come out, is called Dead Giveaway, the motion picture, and I played a dancer called Mini Skirts. It was I don't know how that film is going to look when it all comes out in the end, but I played that. That was up in Worcester. And I did that back in 2009 or 2010, I think. It was a while ago.
And if you are looking to get into acting, I'm going to say this too. Be careful, even no matter what, if it is in the independents, be careful on what avenue. If anybody's doing anything that's beyond the rated R or whatever, I suggest not to get involved in that, because it has nothing to do with the film that we're talking about. The film that we're talking about are people writing scripts and doing little movies that are probably, some are maybe even the rated B, as far as, because I mean that's usually where the rated B films are. I guess they call them rated B, whatever. But those alone, like I say, is that are good for you to get in if you're wanting to get into some little acting things and learn a little bit about it. They're helpful. They give you a heartful thing to do again, and that's, like I say, she continues on. As you can see, she's trying to do things to help other people as well as help herself. So I tell people that, you know, you should enjoy these avenues. This is a great avenue. Now, being a music writer, now that's a different thing. That, I mean, well, first of all, no. To me, being a music writer is a poetry writer.
Mm-hmm.
And you write a piece of poetry,
Right.
either you sing it or you're writing it or whatever, or someone else is going to take what you wrote and they're going to write it and sing it. So that's how it goes. But the music writing, when did you get into that?
It was a very distinctive time. I actually, as I said, I started writing poetry at 4th grade. And then for some reason, at some point in my life in 2006, I wrote something and I said, this is not a poem, this is a song. And that first song I wrote was called I Don't Know, and you've heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, for some reason, it was different. It was different from poetry, it was music, and it kind of came into me. I don't really, can't explain it other than saying I was inspired to write music. And I wrote about an album and a half, maybe 2 albums worth of music, and only 2 of them have I been able to get to the production studio and get out there. But as you know, I do sing them at karaoke. I put them.
Yeah, you do,
put
and
the
people love them. And they're actually, at first, they're kind of like they don't know what's this song?
What is she singing?
And
Where are the words?
And I did one last night. I wrote,
That's
you know,
right.
and people loved it too. I'm an actual songwriter, and I love to do my stuff. First time I did it out, and I had a really good reaction with that.
Yeah.
Now, what was your second song?
The second song I did was called Dancing in Your Garden. And it was a song that I wrote.
Next time we're going to get that too and bring it here so people can see. I want them to hear you. I really
Sure.
do. And as well as that, we want to do a little kind of a show here for people too. I
That'd
like
be
used
fun.
to see us sing actually.
Okay. Yeah, Dancing in Your Garden I wrote. I wrote it for my mom. And it was written when I was at her house one time. So it's just a little, it's an upbeat song.
You got more than that though. I've seen,
I have
you've
more
got
than
some
that,
that's not
yes.
finished yet.
I have quite a few actually.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on them.
Yeah.
They're there for me to kind of get back to, and I'd like to get back to them and get them out there.
And that relates back to the circle as well, as I tell you. She is
Mhm.
writing the music, but she is also working with somebody she knows that is a pianist. And he's from out of, I think he said Massachusetts.
Yes.
And it is important that if you know somebody who's writing on a guitar or piano, I am going to stress this to you, do not just let everybody know what you're doing, because I am going to tell you something. There are people out there that if you make the hit song, believe it or not, they're willing to do it and say it's theirs. That happens all the time. That's been back since who knows when that you've heard, that's my song. I wrote that, and it's very tough. And changing words and things like that, it's very easy for people to literally, you know, take anything and change it and make it theirs. It's where all that, you know, copyright infringement stuff comes in a lot of times. You know, when you do something, it's like, oh, somebody writes a book like you wrote a book, but something similar. It said, well, this all sounds similar. So it's a battle. It's a battle in the courtroom that no one can really win because it's so expensive to do it, and especially when we're little. So I tell people, if you know anything about BMI, ASCAP, and CSACs and all those are the performing rights things. You need to find out about them. They're in Nashville, Tennessee. You can find out about them. You can find out them if they're in your local area by some chance. Sometimes some people have performing arts centers nearby, and they usually have those. But find out these companies, copyrights, protect yourself, logs and things like that, and letting yourself know that you did that on such and such day, who you did it with. Because it's important to keep a track record. This is very important to keep a track record. And I know you probably keep a very good track record. And as well as that, you've got a journal. So you keep a journal.
That's
To
right.
those people doing things, the journal was about the books, right? You were writing the journals to...
Yeah, that's another book of mine. It's on a back burner right now, but I will get to it. I'm actually very excited this year. I'm going to be working with something called Digital City. I hadn't even brought that up yet, but it's a collaborative of different kind of small businesses, writers, filmmakers, musicians. Yeah, I mentioned everybody. I think photographers, a bunch of different people. We're going to be having our first meeting later this month in January. And it's just a working space that people can use to come in, network with other people, work, you know, I can do some bartering of my services, things like that. and really kind of get to know who's out there in the Providence area who needs help with their work and that kind of
And
thing.
this is in Rhode Island, folks. Everything that you're listening to right now is in Rhode Island, outside of anything that did with the publishing companies or whatever. That started in Canada, and it goes wherever.
Yeah, Indiana. I
Like
think.
you say, it umbrellas out, and it goes to other companies that are local.
Right.
There are books out there that will save you pockets of money, loads of money, and also getting robbed. If you read something and it says don't pay nobody, that's what they're telling you. Don't pay nobody. Don't be stupid. Don't think that $5 is going to do it, because $5 is going to buy this dude lunch. Is what that's going
Right.
to do. And he can say thank you. Now we can talk about business. And then that's another $10, and then by the time you know it, you got a whole list of money. Keep records of who you do business with money, anyways, if you decide to do it. But if you are a photographer, you are freelancing, if you are a video film person that is freelancing, you may have to pay out a little money here and there to get what you want. You may have to pay to get a shot or a particular place, and it may hurt your pocket a little bit. Sometimes it might be a little $100 or $200 to get the spot for whatever you need, but it's worth it. But if you can get the people to tell them that whatever I do is advertisement for you, and you can get it that way, work it out. Bargaining is a good thing. Bargaining is very well. Now, what I want to go into is a little bit more about the poetry book, as well as telling them too. The poetry is another thing. Do not go for these contests. These contests, most of them are rip-offs. They take your music, and I've done it. I've worked with Poetry.com and all of them, and I'm just telling you, I know for a fact I did work with Poetry.com. I've written a lot of poetry with them, and I would always get things in the mail about contests. I would enter in the contest, never win. There's always money, and I know that I wrote some beautiful stuff. And I noticed that one of my pieces of work after the thing came back to life, some of my work was missing. I have the work here, so I'm lucky that I know for a fact it was out there. But see, some of that work disappeared. So that tells you that it went somewhere. Where did it go? Everything is always supposed to stay in these places. So whatever you do, don't just go to these poetry places and think the contests are your way to get money, because let me tell you something, I haven't won yet, and I've done a few of them in my time, and I want you to know they're very criminal, and I know that they're about selling stuff more than they are actually giving away.
Money.
Because you yourself have done Poetry.com, and you yourself know that if you wanted an anthology, you would have to pay for the anthology.
Of course.
So, but your poetry that you're doing now, it's raw. It's raw material. I don't think you have anything with you anyways, but the next time that we come, I'd like, to have a little bit more. This is actually my first show here with Muzarticle the Loft.
Should I give the contact information for me?
Yeah.
In touch with me?
Why don't you do this while we're talking a little bit more? Write it on the back here in really nice big letters, and then hold it up there for the viewers to see.
Okay.
I would like to share with you that in the Providence area here, there are some karaoke shows that you will see myself as well as you will see her. Starting off on Tuesday nights here in the local area off of Richmond Street is a Rick's Roadhouse. It's Tuesday night. It's also ran by AJ Karaoke Madness. It starts at 9 o'clock and it ends at 1 o'clock. That's Tuesday nights. And then Wednesday nights, just down from the bridge area from that area, over there, there's a place called Lola's in between Whiskey Republic. This is another place that holds karaoke. It starts at 9 and ends at 1 o'clock. It's ran by AJ again. And then Thursday night, there's nothing that we know of. And tonight there's going to be a show that's going to be karaoke. But the Friday night is the Parlor here off of North Main Street. Very good show. A lot of great people, loving people who love what we do. And Lola's another loving place as well. Great drinks, great food, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say that for everybody. Not everybody that you go to, you're going to have something that might be missing in a bar. You might not like the drinks, you might not like the food, but let me tell you something, the music and the love that you get from the musicians that get up there who use their vocals to please you and sing, and it gets very competitive. As time goes by, one gets up there and does a really good song, they're like, oh God, I gotta be competitive. So it is.
Yeah.
So Friday nights is the Parlor, and then that starts at 9 and ends at 2. And then of course now Saturday we found out about a new one which is called
it's in Pawtucket at Dublin, something like that. I forget the name of the bar.
Yeah.
But it's in Pawtucket, so we're gonna check it out tonight.
You can go online and you can find these online and you can go, and most of the time you will see and they'll say, Krisna, if I'm popular, I'm a karaoke communitist, I love to get in the community of karaoke singers, promote karaoke, because it is a beautiful thing. It's another way. Now, what I want her to do here is I want her to give you her contact information so that she's able to get in touch with you if you decide you want to get in touch with her about her book. If you would like a copy of it and you want to buy a copy, it is available. Like I say, the name of it is Dear Tommy. And I would like people to know that at any point in time in your life, if you feel that you wish to speak with her or write her, I'm sure that there's ways she will give you that information. Please do not harass or anything like that. I'd ask you, please do not contact her with any phony stories or anything like that, because this is a serious thing going on in the world, and she knows it and I know it, and there are a lot of people hurting out there, and we want to help the hurting. We don't want to add to the hurting by deepening it, you know what I'm saying? So I would like to say, please, use this information to better yourself, help yourself, and all that. That's what this is about.
Okay.
Now it's all yours.
All right. So hopefully you can read this. I'm going to read it out loud anyway. My email address
Bring it up there a little bit closer.
is
Just a little closer.
ceoharrison@gmail.com. And if you can, hopefully you can see that all right. And my contact on Facebook is Christie H, CHRISTIE, capital H. And that's on Facebook. If you just search on that, that's me. You can see my picture there so you recognize me. And those are 2 ways you can contact me. So hopefully you get that.
Yeah.
All right?
And like I say, if you do contact her, please contact her with love and consideration to the fact that what she is doing is she's trying to make a difference in some people's lives. And that's important that we support that. We support that in any situation. You support your cancer societies, or you support any handicap societies or whatever. Anything that you do, you always do it to better it. We want to better it, you know, with lots of love. My name is Chris Sanjamaya, and like I said, this is Muzarticle, the Loft Studio. This is Christie O'Neil Harrison here. She's written 3 books, and I think it's great that she came here today to do my first show. This is actually my first show, and the next time we're going to probably be doing something called Karaoke Nights, to let you know, which will even have probably later on a little bit more elaborate stuff. Like we might even have things in there where you're going to see these shows, where you can actually see some of this stuff real. This stuff is real. And I mean, there are some fantastically great singers out there. Like last night, that girl, what was her name, Raquel? Raquel was a wonderful singer.
Excellent.
God, what a voice on this girl. And you say to yourself, why aren't we stars? Well, that's something I can't.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. I am. I'm trying to get out there. You know me anyways. You know me, Chris. You know me from the line. And I just want to tell you, I love everybody out there. And I want to say we're going to pray for your families to be good too as well. We are about our religions here. We do believe that everybody falls a little bit, so I just want you to know that we love you and we love your family. And if you are a singer, sing to your grandmother, sing to your mother, sing to your father, sing to the soldiers, sing to anybody that you can sing to, because it is a blessing in my book. That's where I stand in the music department. As you can see, I like on the music part of it. And she also is now becoming that too as well. We're working on some very, very good stuff here, hopefully for a better future. And it's all about video editing, filmmaking, productions, movies, and all that. We're thinking about going right directly into it. And when we become famous and huge,
We'll remember the little people.
we'll remember the little people. We'll remember you with lots of love. We promise that. Right now, you're in my home. And I want to say to you again one more time, this is Muzarticle, the Loft Studio. This is our first show, and I want to say, Christy, thank you for coming to my show. Thank you for sharing what you have shared with me, not only as a friend, but as well as a co-singer now in the stages. We do go to shows. So, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye from Providence, Rhode Island. This is karaoke show number 1, a little bit about it, and also book writing number 1.